request. What would be my advice to my successor? I'm not sure any successor of mine needs advice. The first thing I want to say is that I go in a positive spirit. I'm not going with any bitterness or resentment. I will go with a spring in my step and a glint in my eye, feeling that I've been very lucky and it's been a great privilege, and the ship of state moves on and the responsibility is devolved to somebody else. I'll go off and do other things with my life. But I think what I would say to that person is, remember to stand up for the backbenchers. There are far more backbenchers in Parliament than there are frontbenchers. And the Speaker has got a special duty, and I think all the candidates for Speaker understand this, to ensure that their voices are heard, that they can speak up for their convictions and their principles and their causes and their constituents. And it isn't the responsibility of the Speaker to be predominantly concerned about what the government wants. The government has certain rights, and that's perfectly proper. But I've always taken the view that if it's a choice between a few more questions being able to be put at question time, on the one hand, or rushing ahead to the next piece of possibly undersubscribed business and the right of the minister to make a speech on it, it's more important in prime time to give quizzical members a chance to put their inquiries to ministers, because that's the nature of the democratic process. I've lost count of the number of times over the years around the world people have said to me, we wish our ministers had to come here to respond to questions. Well, in the UK they do, and I prefer it to be more so. I've increased the number of questions, and I've sometimes overrun, including at Prime Minister's questions, and I make absolutely no apology for that. And the second piece of advice I would say is, keep the best and improve the rest. Never be satisfied. Be proud of the best things about Parliament, but always be thinking, how can we do it better? How can we perform scrutiny better? How can we facilitate the expression of opinion more successfully? And how, in relation to the second order issues, which are nevertheless important, we can improve. When I say second order issues, the first order issues are the role of the House of Commons as a legislature and a debating chamber. But the second order questions, which are still very important, include, what are we like as a workplace? What do we do to try to broker a more representative staff, more BAME staff, more female staff, more people from proud but underprivileged backgrounds given the chance either to serve as members of Parliament or to work for the institution? I've developed a whole scheme to encourage and enable people interested in politics and Parliament who can't possibly afford to do unpaid internships to work on a paid basis for a period. That is a scheme. When I took office, we had a shooting gallery on the parliamentary estate, which wasn't heavily subscribed, but we had no nursery where MPs and staff could pay to put their kids to broker a better work-life balance. And at first, when I inquired, I was told by a very senior official, it's a very good idea in principle, Mr. Speaker, on your part to establish a nursery, but I'm afraid there's no suitable site. There's no suitable site, he said to me. And I said, well, I'm afraid I simply don't buy that. He said, well, I tell you what, Mr. Speaker, I shall put together a paper upon the matter and give you my conclusions. And I thought, I can see what's coming here. This is Sir Humphrey stuff. You know, I'm going to get a paper saying it's absolutely bloody impossible, nothing to be done, got to keep things as they are, doubles all round, absolutely first class. So I said, no, I tell you what. He said, well, there were a number of possible sites, Mr. Speaker, to be candid, sort of somewhat backtracking, but I think none of them is really entirely fit for the needs of the case. There were very considerable problems. He said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll go round and I'll write up my views on them. I said, no, I'll tell you what, we'll go round together. You know, we eventually got to a point where we got a nursery. I suppose what I'd say, they don't need my advice. They don't need my advice. What I would say is always be looking for improvements. And if you've come up against, as I have done, institutional and sometimes personnel obstacles to the delivery of necessary, desired and overdue change, what you have to do is to apply the Churchill adage, KBO. Keep buggering on at all times. It's a great mistake if you're trying to deliver change management and to lead and catalyse change to be too inclined to give up at the first hurdle. Things that are worth achieving require not just a good idea, but game plan as to how to deliver it, and a certain, dare I say it, never say die, I refuse to lose, we will prevail in the end, indomitable spirit, because otherwise you just don't get things done. But I think my colleagues know this. I think they'll look to stand up for backbenchers. I think there's no going back. The future of the House is as a more assertive, more demanding, more inquisitive, more challenging, more lively, more unpredictable, more topical House of Commons. And that is in the interests of constituents, and ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, it conduces to better government. If you have got, frankly, an enfeebled Parliament with little going on, few questions being asked, inadequate procedures to facilitate debate and representation, yes, it's easy for the government, but that, I'm afraid, tends to lead to a slippery slope of mistake-making, of complacency, and of lethargy. So what I would say is, let's continue the drive for a stronger House of Commons. Sometimes there will be people outside Parliament in the media who support it, and other times they won't. But if we believe it's right, then we should just continue to pursue it. And I would say what I've tried to do, for all my imperfections, mistakes and inadequacies, is to do what I believe is right, to listen to constructive criticism, but to be utterly indifferent to and unbothered by what I would call ad hominem abuse. There's a lot of ad hominem abuse. I'm regularly abused, but it is a matter of absolutely monumental insignificance. It simply doesn't matter. What you've got to do is decide what your view is, how you're going to go about it, and proceed. And my last words to you are this. Some of you here, the older ones, will remember the late Tony Benn. Now, I disagreed with Tony on most matters, but I liked Tony and I admired him as a communicator. He was the best speaker in my time in Parliament, the best public speaker in my time in Parliament, the best debater, I would say, Robin Cook, absolutely intellectually ferocious, closely followed by Malcolm Rifkind and Ken Clarke. But I would say Robin was the best debater. The best speaker was Tony Benn. I used to imitate Tony, whom some of you may remember had an interesting speech delivery. And towards the end of his life, he developed a speech that he delivered regularly and which I tried to impersonate, including in front of him. Whenever I meet anybody with power, I always ask that person 5 questions. What power have you got? Who gave it to you? In whose interests do you exercise it? To whom are you accountable? And how can we get rid of you?
Yeah.